On December 14, 2004, police responded to a shocking scene. Inside a home, they found Gumaro de Dios Arias, a man who had taken the life of his lover, Raul Gonzalez, and engaged in disturbing acts involving the body. The evidence was undeniable: cooked body parts, blood-stained items, and a chilling confession. In this video, we're going to break down the facts of this unsettling case, step by step. Viewer discretion is advised. On December 14, 2004, 8 agents from the Boer Group responded to a report of a highly unusual event. It was something one rarely encounters and could easily provoke shock and confusion. Although acts like this have occurred throughout history, it is now recognized as a deeply disturbing and repulsive practice: cannibalism, or the act of consuming members of the same species. Upon entering the scene, the agents were confronted with an unbelievable and grotesque sight. The central figure was identified as Gumaro de Dios Arias, who in his home had prepared stews and roasts using a highly unusual ingredient, Raul Gonzalez, a person who had been his companion. Gumaro de Dios was born on April 7, 1978, in La Susana, Tabasco, Mexico, as the son of Candelario de Dios and Nana Arias, and one of 10 siblings. At the age of 6, he was mistreated by a family member, and from that moment, his behavior started to change. He was often seen playing with dolls and would sometimes express that he identified as a girl. His behavior raised eyebrows, but as a child, those around him did not take it seriously. As time passed, he grew up bearing significant trauma. In his teenage years, he was involved in an accident where he was hit by a trailer. After recovering, his behavior became even more bizarre. He was occasionally seen caressing a mare, with which he would have intercourse when he thought no one was looking. He fantasized that the mare was an American woman, with whom he dreamed of having children. During his youth, he displayed mild mental retardation and suffered from schizophrenia, as he would often be seen talking to himself and laughing alone. In terms of work, he was extremely lazy. When asked to help with farm work, he would refuse, saying he didn't want to be a farmer, and instead spent his time lying around. In the evenings, he would frequently go out to get drunk and was even seen using drugs, a habit that became routine. People who observed him reported that at times he acted like a woman, and at other times like the devil himself. When he turned 14, his father, fed up with his son's laziness and bad behavior, enlisted him in the army. However, instead of improving, Gumaro's behavior worsened. He got into a fight with a second lieutenant and was arrested and locked up in a cell. When he was released, he was filled with anger and attacked the second lieutenant with a knife, stabbing him in the chest and legs, and then fled the army. He returned to the Rancheria La Susana in Cardenas, Tabasco. Rather than change, he fell deeper into addiction, consuming all sorts of substances. Then, one day, in a fit of madness, he committed a horrifying crime. He sexually abused his 1-year-old nephew. The baby was left in critical condition. At first, the family didn't know who had done this to the child, but the truth came out when Gumaro himself confessed to it. In 2000, he was arrested and imprisoned in Cardenas. He initially believed he had been arrested for harming his nephew, but he later found out that his imprisonment was due to the theft of a tape recorder and 5 shirts. He spent a year and 6 months there. During this time, after his family had not visited him, he decided to head to Chetumal, located in the state of Quintana Roo. In 2004, in Mahahual, a coastal Mayan area, a man challenged him with a machete. The man insulted and mocked him, and in a moment of distraction, Gumaro seized the machete and began to fillet the man like a fish, leaving him gravely wounded on the ground. Gumaro later mentioned that after fleeing, the man's spirit appeared to him and tormented him until his last days. Afterward, he wandered into a region called El Petén, situated between Mexico and Belize, where he roamed until he came across a building where he lived for a while. It was here that he met an old man, whom he called El Sabio, an elderly Mayan sorcerer, to whom Gumaro promised to kill 3 people. In the same village, he met a 19-year-old named Raul Gonzalez, known as El Pelon or El Guacho, who had a tattoo of a woman and had also deserted the Army's 31st Infantry Battalion after stealing a gun. They quickly became friends, as both shared issues with drinking and drugs, eventually transitioning from close friends to lovers. They moved into an abandoned palapa, located 100 meters from kilometer 216 of the Chetumal-Playa del Carmen highway. This palapa belonged to a real estate project that had been intended for a residential development. Since neither of them had a job or any means of supporting themselves, they would sometimes venture into the coastal city to steal valuables from homes. They would also solicit money from tourists in exchange for sex. On December 12, 2004, Gumaro wrote the final chapter in his gruesome story. That day, they were doing what had become routine, consuming alcohol and illegal substances. At some point, the alcohol ran out, and with no money to buy more, Gumaro remembered that Raul, his lover, owed him 500 pesos. He asked Raul to buy more alcohol, but Raul replied that he had no money. Enraged, Gumaro grabbed the closest thing at hand, an electric cable, and began beating Raul with it. When Raul passed out, Gumaro hung him up, and when he woke up, he demanded the money again. Raul confessed he had spent it. In an attempt to defend himself, Gumaro picked up a concrete block and hurled it at Raul's head. After Raul collapsed, Gumaro continued hitting him until his skull was crushed. Even then, Raul was still moving, so Gumaro wrapped the cable around his neck and pulled until Raul stopped moving, then hung him up once more. By nightfall, in a state of euphoria, Gumaro decided to eat him. He took a knife, dismembered the body, removed Raul's tattoo, and cut him open to extract his internal organs. The next day, with money Raul had, Gumaro went to the market to buy ingredients. Upon returning, he lit the grill and grilled Raul's heart, some ribs, and a kidney. He used the entrails to make broth and filleted the left thigh to cook it. He fried tortillas and fat from the body. The following day, he cooked the other leg in the same way and also sampled raw strips of meat, along with 4 ribs. Over the weekend, he survived on Raul's flesh. However, as flies began to swarm the area, disgusted by their presence, Gumaro stopped eating the remaining ribs. It was then that a young man, known as the Grim Reaper, came to the palapa and was welcomed by Gumaro, who offered him a piece of meat. The young man accepted, but after noticing the meat looked strange, he peeked inside and saw body parts strewn around. Horrified, he quickly left, and soon rumors of what Gumaro had done spread, prompting neighbors to come and verify the young man's account. That's when they saw Gumaro in broad daylight, handling the limbs, yet no one knew what to do until a cab driver alerted the municipal and judicial police about the events. It was 7:40 a.m. on Tuesday, December 14, 2004, when 8 agents from the Boer group arrived at the scene. What they encountered was shocking and terrifying, something extremely unusual. They found Gumaro asleep next to the dismembered body, lying in a hammock, clutching the decaying torso that was missing both the head and limbs. Scattered around were ingredients used to cook the meat, a cooler full of beer, remains of inhalants, and a blood-stained toothbrush with pieces of raw flesh. One of the agents ordered him to get up, and they quickly placed him in handcuffs. They described him as resembling an animal, like a primitive man. The story made immediate headlines across the country. In an interview, Gumaro said, "I decided to take out everything inside, the heart and ribs. They were delicious, tasted like lamb. That's why I ate the kidney. I left the skin because it was too tough." After his arrest, he admitted to the charges and showed no remorse, even expressing that he had no regrets and had always been curious to taste human flesh. He was transferred to the Playa del Carmen prison, where none of the other inmates wanted to share a cell with him. During his time in Playa del Carmen's municipal jail, Gumaro de Dios instilled fear among the prison population, being described as aggressive. It was said that, on one occasion, he cut off a piece of his left ear to eat it, claiming he missed the taste of human flesh. A few months later, he threatened to kill the prison cook because the food had no flavor. Inmates, even those considered highly dangerous, feared him, as he would sometimes talk to himself and stare intensely at others without blinking. Many were afraid that, in a fit of rage, he might attack them to eat them. When journalists and psychiatrists visited, he would introduce himself with pride, saying, "Hi, I'm the cannibal." Due to his behavior, he was administered antidepressants and sleeping pills, which kept him asleep for long periods. On March 20th, 2007, a judge ordered his transfer to a social rehabilitation center in the state of Morelos, as he was deemed mentally ill. There, he underwent psychological and psychiatric evaluations to determine his legal status. In September 2008, he was moved back to the Social Rehabilitation Center in Chetumal, where he was placed in a special cell, isolated from the other inmates, as many feared his unquenchable desire for human flesh. Some speculated that he acted this way simply to intimidate others, ensuring no one dared to mess with him. After extensive studies, it was confirmed that Gumaro suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, a disorder characterized by delusions and auditory hallucinations that distort one's perception of reality. He claimed he was still seeking his third victim and believed he had already found him, another inmate who, in his words, "Just by looking at him, made my blood boil." He added that once he fulfilled his promise, El Sabio would reward him with what had been promised, and he would live an additional 150 years. Among other things, Gumaro mentioned that killing is like taking the life of a chicken. He went on to say that by eating his lover, he absorbed all his powers. Raul had been a skilled bricklayer, and now Gumaro claimed he would be even better. During his evaluations, it was also discovered that he had acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. 4 years later, on Tuesday, September 11, 2012, Gumaro died in Chetumul's General Hospital at the age of 34. He was buried in the Rancheria La Azucena in the municipality of Cardenas, Tabasco. His case inspired the song "CANNIBAL," performed by Kim Kai and Lupe Esparza, which was the theme for the Argentine film La Hija del Cannibal, meaning the cannibal's daughter, as well as a book. The palapa where Gumaro murdered and consumed his victim was repurposed once again into an office for another residential housing project. A chilling case that sparks the imagination, reminding us of the mysteries of the human mind that we may never fully understand. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow me on my social media, listed below in the description.